Hi, I'm Jim Farley. We're here at Ford's Dearborn campus. I'm so excited to do this show, Office Hours, Business Edition, with Monica Langley. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good to see you.
You too. All right, let's go.
Okay.
Thank you for that intro.
Sure.
Love that. And you are the CEO of Ford.
Yes.
By the way, you just said we're at the Ford campus.
Yes.
This is amazing. Tell us exactly where we are and what's all around here.
Well, when Henry Ford was born in Cork, Ireland. He came to Cork Town in Michigan, and then his family settled on a farm not only a half mile from here. So, and my grandfather also lived here in Dearborn. And so when Henry started to build his plants, he built them in downtown Detroit, but his home was really Dearborn. So when we became really successful with the Model T, he moved the company from Detroit to here and built a whole campus. So we have the Lions practice facility, which is owned by his grandson, William Clay Ford, and my boss, the chairman, and his family. We have, right next to us is our test track. That was used for the tri-motor Ford airplanes. Across the street is the Greenfield Village and the Henry Ford Museum, which was inaugurated by Thomas Edison. They built a whole campus for employees, children, and employees to be educated about innovation. We have our Global Product Development Center here and our famous headquarters, which we're now moving to a brand new facility across the street. So this is ground zero for America's, car company for over 120 years.
That's fascinating, and I noticed the test track. I wanted to go get on it.
Yes.
But that's like a super sensitive site, like
Yes.
Fort Knox, and the walls are much taller than
Yes.
I could ever jump to look in.
Well, we do our active testing of our new vehicles there, and we have to camouflage them. And but Monica, you know someone, so we can get in there.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Now listen, this goes to Jim Farley. You're all about car culture. You're the head of a car company. You wrench on cars. You have a podcast about cars.
I do.
You race cars.
Yeah, I need to get out more.
And then we just drove up in the Ford
Dark Horse Mustang.
Dark Horse
Yep.
Mustang.
Yep.
You drove up in
Yes,
it
yes.
And made a lot of vrooming sound. That was good. But because you live and breathe car culture, what is a car to you?
To me, a car is one of the most expensive consumer products a person will ever buy around the planet. There are about 90 million sold around the world. In some countries, it's the most expensive thing that someone will ever buy in their lifetime. And so a car is certainly transportation, but it's changing a lot. In Asia, more than 20% of the time people spend in the cars, it's stationary, not in traffic. It's like a place. It's like a new third or second place for people, especially in a busy China. A mom going back into a 3-generation home, it's her chance to watch a movie, perhaps, and rejuvenate. So cars changing, but it's a place. It's a third place in our lives. And with automation, it's going to really change. The trips are going to go from getting from point A to point B to being a different experience completely.
Let's talk about that in a little bit. But one time I saw that you referred to selling Ford as kind of emotional because you're not selling shampoo, you once said.
Yes, I do.
Do you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
It can be an emotional thing for people.
Oh my God, we have the Raptor Rally this weekend in Lake Havasu, and it's completely sold out. People coming from all over the world with their Raptors to be around other people. I've seen people cry and laugh because cars are really emotional for people. And cars to us personally, in my podcast, I found it doesn't matter if you're Tom Brady or, it doesn't really matter. Everyone has a connection, a road trip, their first car, an emotional event in their life. That's why people name their cars.
Exactly. And as the Ford CEO, what is that to you?
Well, it's changed a lot during my life. You know, I entered the industry, I was apprehensive because I loved cars. I thought it's a business. It could actually ruin my love of cars. Over time, though, it really changed from cars to the people. As I got more responsibility, I've seen so many great cars, and now what really gets me excited is to watching people grow.
So that says a lot about kind of your transformation as a leader.
Yes, and it's interesting you say that because I have older friends from college who still think of me as kind of one-dimensional car person. And if they were to see my average day and what I'm like, I think they would be shocked, actually, because I'm not that person anymore. Of course, I love cars, and it's so important to me, especially when I have a bad day. You know, I'm still in love with what we do. But to lead a company of 180,000 people, $200 billion public company, it's really not about the cars.
That is a shock. Wait just a minute. It's not about the cars.
Well, of course, it is about the best product, and always will be. We're a consumer products company. But it's in my job as a CEO, I would not be successful if all I did is focus on the best vehicles. It's not that simple. I mean, the reality is we have to have a competitive cost, we have to have competitive quality, we have to have, great talent, we have to have great technology for the future of vehicles. And we'll have adjacent businesses, like our finance business today or our software business. There'll be new adjacency. Who knows? Ford may be making a large-scale robot in the future that works in your house for you. I don't think my job affords me to just focus on the physical four walls of the product.
Let's talk about you and cars before we jump
Sure.
into other issues, because you are an actual racer.
Yes.
You race cars.
Yes, I do. Yes.
What do you race?
I race anything I can get my hands on.
But you go to professional.
Yes, I raced at Le Mans this year in a Mustang with 50 other people. I race modern cars, Mustangs. I race vintage cars like the Ford GT40 that I own that won Le Mans back in 1966.
And you didn't win in it yet.
I've won a lot of races, but no, not my GT40. I think I came in second in Le Mans Classic. But
I know you've won a lot of races. I've followed you.
Yes.
Which, when I first met you, when you began as Ford CEO 5 years ago, and I talked to you and you said, I said, surely now you're the big time CEO of a Fortune 20 company. You're not going to keep driving, are you? It's a pretty dangerous activity, Jim Farley. Mm-hmm. And what'd you say?
I said, it's my yoga. I'm not giving it up. Which is, I talked to Bill Ford and I talked to the board, and also flew gliders, so I can't do both. But they said, look, we trust you, Jim. And I know where I race. I know the FIA tracks where there's a lot of runoff, and I don't take unreasonable risk, but racing is filled with risk. But I find it to be, look, I'm around car people, but what I love about racing is it requires, like piloting an airplane, 100% focus. You can't think of anything else while you're driving. And I love that because it gives me mental vacation. For last weekend, I was at Watkins Glen, 3 hours. I thought about nothing other than the next turn, the person next to me, beating them. For 3 hours, nothing else. There was nothing else. And it really refreshes me. When I'm done, I feel completely rejuvenated. And I'm around car people, and they ground me. It takes a team to win. I'm talking to the mechanics. I'm working at the car late at night, and it grounds me as a leader. I'm not Jim Farley, the CEO. I'm Jim Farley, the teammate. And I think that's essential for us as leaders, to have a place where you can fill up your bucket.
And it happens that this is in your industry. And
Yes.
when you were appointed CEO, people they had an actual car guy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because the previous ones have been.
Yes, there are two sides of that, though, that as a car person, well, first there's like the stereotype type of a car person in the 50s, cigar chomping, old, person who's an engineer who points at the design studio and says, I like that one, I don't like that one. I'm not that kind of car person. I'm actually the opposite of that. But I do orient my life around cars. This year I took a long trip with my daughter in my 1928 car all the way through Colorado for 800 miles. And we loved it with similar people. That's my life. I love the people around cars.
Now, you have obviously a need for speed.
Mm-hmm.
Are you injecting that in your leadership? I mean, I'd like to talk to you about what are your leadership hallmarks. Speed seems to be one, and
Yes.
that's in the transformation of this company.
Yes, I think all traditional OEMs are really far behind, but Ford had even more catch up to do. Mm-hmm. This was a very humbling journey we've been on quality and cost. These are basic things for an industrial company, as you know, and we had a lot of progress to make. In addition to that, we have this transformation of our industry, both electrification as well as software-defined vehicles. All of those three things had to be addressed at Ford, all three things. Get the industrial system fit, get the technology for your EV strategy right, and there was no playbook, and it continues to change, as well as we needed to get serious about treating our vehicles like digital devices and wrap more services around our business. So it was a huge transformation in the last 5 years. And I would say we're about in the middle of things.
Okay. Now, you have always been in the car business, basically.
Yes, I have, yes.
Now, what was your first job?
Oh my gosh. I would say my first job, I was a newspaper boy in Connecticut.
And I'm from newspaper, I'm a newspaper girl.
It was great. I loved it. Actually, the original President Bush's mom, Prescott Bush, who was a politician in Connecticut, she was on my paper route. And then when I got paid on the weekend, I would take my Schwinn Stingray and go downtown. In my town was the Ferrari distributorship for all of America. And of course, me being me, I fell in love with the Italian mechanics in the bottom floor. And at 13, 14 years old, we were talking about cars, mostly in English/Italian, with all those beautiful Ferraris. That's how I kind of started. But my first breakthrough job was I was a interior upholstery person at a car restoration shop in Santa Monica.
In California.
And that's how I put myself through graduate school at UCLA, was getting my MBA. And I worked for our first American Formula One champion, Phil Hill, who was a race car driver for Ferrari. He was my boss. And I was a janitor, and then I got upgraded to working on interiors. And we worked on very special cars that won Pebble Beach. So I worked on ostrich hide, frog interiors. I worked on, fancy, like Sylvester Stallone's cars, and that was really a breakthrough. I kind of got my PhD sitting around the break room with these artisans who taught me what a beautiful car looks like. I remember the body person, because I was interior, the body guy goes, "Come over here, Farley, and tell me if this panel's straight." I said, okay. So I put a couple fingers on it, and he looks at me and goes, "Is that how you hold your girlfriend?" And I said, okay. I used my whole hand. He goes, "Don't you feel a lot more information there?" I said, "Oh, yeah, this is not flat." I had 1,000 experiences like that. And so when I look at a car, I go back to that moment when a 70-year-old paint guy, who painted cars with no respirator, he taught me what beauty was. And it was my first, most important job.
That's very special. But then, a little bit later, you joined Toyota.
I did, yes.
What did you do at Toyota?
I think I was the first class of MBA in the U.S. to be hired. There was one other person, and I was hired to be in product planning, which was my dream job. When I entered the industry, I wanted to work with engineers and to make cars, like the concept of the car, and make sure it was executed right for the customer. And that was a breakthrough moment for me. I had offers from Ford and General Motors and Chrysler. My family was from Detroit. My grandfather was an hourly worker here at Ford. And so when I called my grandfather and said, I have a great job. I had actually worked for J.P. Morgan in corporate finance over the summer between my 2 graduate schools, and I loved it, but it wasn't for me. And so I decided to follow my dream to go into the car business. And when I joined Toyota, let's put it this way, I don't think my family was they were proud of me, but they were certainly not proud I was working for a Japanese company. My father was a naval officer in World War II. My grandfather worked at Ford. It was a tough conversation, to be honest. And, I had to stay on the West Coast. But I did my research. I knew that Toyota was going to be a force to be reckoned with. And I knew, yes, and I knew that working on Lexus could be a moment for me to learn a lot. So it was a big risk. And I guess that's the thread through my whole career. I kept taking risks, but I knew what I was doing.
So they were calculated risks. They weren't just crazy risk taking. Yeah.
Yes.
Now, then you came to Ford. I'm
Yes.
sure everybody's super
Yes.
proud. Unfortunately, your grandfather didn't get to see you as
No.
Ford CEO.
No.
But it's a 122-year-old company.
Yes.
It's an icon, an
Yes.
American icon. Do you every day feel the pressure of having to preserve this legacy at the same time making it profit-making, innovative, future forward?
Absolutely. That is why I took the job. I had another offer to go to another job, which I won't talk about. And
You can.
My wife and I talked about it, and she was, and I said to her, Leah, these will be big problems. These will be important problems for a lot of people. I want to help the company be the best of Ford, because Ford deserves the best. And I'm an American kid. Yeah. And my grandfather worked here. Like, his job at Ford put my mom through college. It was a moment where everything came together. And every day I walk into that office, I have no idea what's going to happen. Certainly I know exactly what I want to do, but there's always a surprise around the corner, as you know better than I. But I am extremely connected to the mission of making this American icon relevant through this transition. I think the next CEO will have a completely different complexion to me. I believe each of these eras require a specific kind of leader, and I think the board recognized the moment we were in. And when I'm done, we'll all know. And I know that this will be looked on as one of the most critical periods, maybe one of the most awkward periods for that 122-year history.
Now, mention your successor, and you said we'll all know when what are you thinking? How much longer are you going to be the CEO of Ford?
That's a great question. I think it's like professional sports. Thankfully, our minds get better and we have more wisdom with age and business. I think there's just a moment when I'll go back to cars, sorry, but I once saw an interview with Johnny Rutherford, who won the Indy 500 many times. And it was fascinating to me as a CEO because we're performance-oriented and we're competitive. And so we all recognize that we don't want to lead when we're not the best person to lead, if we're right-minded. So Johnny said that he knew that he was done with his racing career 6 months before he retired, because he came into the garage and he didn't sweat all the little details he had the previous race. And everyone else thought on the outside that he quit because he had a bad accident. He said that was nothing to do with it. He was upside down, methanol dripping on him. He never caught on fire, but it was a very scary moment. He said that had nothing to do with my retirement. I knew that when I stopped sweating those details, I was not going to be the best in the world.
So are you still
I think
sweating those details?
Oh, absolutely, I do.
I mean, this was
Yeah.
because this is in your blood.
Yes.
That your grandfather worked on the
Yes.
Model T, I think.
Yes, he
didn't
did. He did. Mhm.
And because it is in your blood, when you became CEO, I think that was a dream come true job. Has it become a nightmare yet with all the problems going on? I mean, from,
Yeah,
supply
I
chain.
mean, I would say a lot of my true friends, friends that are with you in good times and bad, they'll say, holy cow.
Yeah, or worse.
Well, bring on the locusts. It's like, but I think that's how all the car companies, are facing now. And it's an industrial company in the middle of geopolitic tariff war with China emerging, going after directly every job in the automotive industry outside of China. It's just our lot in life. Yeah. And what do they say? God gives you what you can take. I think, it's all happening and it's all okay. And I feel like I do have the right skills, and every year I get better.
And you're still getting better, so you'll be around for a while.
Absolutely. But that's the board and Bill Ford's decision. That's how it works, and that's how it should work. And I respect that completely.
But congrats, your recent Q3 earnings.
Yes.
You beat all the Wall Street estimates. It was a great quarter.
It was, yes.
So.
Long time in coming.
So you are you turning the corner?
I think so. Actually, if you were to ask me 2 years ago, I would probably say yes, but I would say in retrospect, this corner is a bigger corner. It feels not like a corner, it feels like cresting a hill. I feel like we just crested a hill, not because we had a good quarter, because as a leader, we all have a sixth sense about where we are in the journey, and when do you get critical mass? Critical mass in your team, how they work together, which is, you can't predict actually. You can get the best talented athletes, but how they work together as a team, very influenced by you as a leader, but it just kind of happens or it doesn't happen. But our strategies are starting to play out now in the marketplace. And we have lots of headwinds, which I think we've done a good job thinking ahead. So I feel like we're cresting a hill now, in the sense that we're far enough down the execution of our plan that it feels more exciting than it was yesterday.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so now one thing that you have become very vocal on is the essential economy.
Yes.
And I think given your background with your grandfather being on
Yes.
the assembly line and now managing all these people that work
Yes.
for Ford, you have a great deal of respect for the blue collar worker.
I do.
Tell me what's on your mind with that.
In my humble opinion, those jobs made our country what it is. Those hardworking jobs, a whole generation and generations today that go to work every day. I was in Kansas City yesterday. In the summer it's 120 degrees. Do you want to be putting Raptor bumpers on F-150s with 120 degrees? It's hard. Yeah. You and I would leave that job and we would be sore for a week. And they do it every day, 8 to 10 hours a day. It is not easy work. It is really hard. It's tedious, and it's important. And the essential economy, we are in trouble in our country. We are not talking about this enough. We have over 1 million openings in critical jobs: emergency services, trucking, factory workers, plumbers, electricians, and tradesmen. It's a very serious thing. We do not have trade schools. We are not investing in educating a next generation of people like my grandfather, who had nothing, who built a middle-class life and a future for his family. Those jobs are out there. Mechanics in a Ford dealership. As of this morning, we had 5,000 openings. A bay with a lift and tools and no one to work in it.
Are you kidding me?
Nope. $120,000 a job a year, but it takes you 5 years to learn it. Take a diesel out of a Super Duty, it takes a lot of skill. You need to know what you're doing. And God forbid we ever get in a war, Google's not going to be able to make the tanks and the planes. So this is a self-defense for our country issue. But how I think about it is, if we work together like we always have in America, we shine a light on the problem, and we start getting people together like we did at Accelerate here in Detroit, like-minded people with similar problems, Roger Pensy, lots of other CEOs, and we get after this with the government, with education. I think we can solve this, but we have a lot of work to do. And I'm very humbled. I'm late in my life. These jobs gave me the ability to go through graduate school. And we are in deep trouble when you compare us to China.
Now, you've made moves at Ford to kind of follow the Henry Ford model, I think from 1914.
Yes.
Which was when he suddenly paid the factory workers a lot of money.
Yeah,
now,
$5 a day. Mm-hmm.
Which was big back then.
Yes, it was.
And what are you doing now? You're actually trying to show we value this work.
Oh, yes. I'm so proud of us. I'm always proud of us, but there are certain moments, Monica, where it comes like into focus. We were the first company to ratify a union agreement with the UAW and the Canadian unions negotiations the last time that came up. Mm-hmm. There were 3 companies, and they were all trying to do this at the same time, and Ford was the first in both cases. Totally different countries, different workforce. I believe that we learned during COVID that a 2-tier wage system where we pay some people, $17 an hour and other people $25 an hour is just not going to work. We saw huge turnover. Many of those people, to skip levels, went to the plants. They're like, Mr. Farley, I work 3 jobs. Don't expect me to be on time at Ford when I have 2 other jobs to work. Mm-hmm. And I said, we got to do something here. So we got rid of the lower tier, paid everyone the same. Now those people have a career at Ford, like my grandfather. And if you go into special trades, fully fringed, $100,000 plus, with great benefits, that's the kind of America we want. Now, it'd be cheaper for us to make more stuff in Mexico, but we think it's smarter over long term for our country to do what we do at Ford, which is make 80% in the U.S.
Speaking of blue-collar jobs, your son, who's with you today,
yes,
Jameson,
yes.
He had a blue-collar job this summer. What
Yes.
did he do?
He worked on a NASCAR team, and in his spare time, he worked on a modified race team at night. He learned how to weld, fabricate. He loves lunching with me. We were under my Bronco this morning working on it, and I'm really proud of him. He likes working with his hands. He's got a job at a dealership on the weekend, and I think I'm proud that he is learning how to work with his hands, no matter what he does.
That's cool. I mean, he could go to college next year.
Yes.
And but he also knows how
Yes.
to work on a car.
Yes, he does.
And do those things. Yeah.
And a lot of people his age have no idea what to do.
Exactly.
And I'm really proud of him that, he gets up in the morning on Saturday and goes to work. And that's what I did. And that's what my grandfather did and his father.
Let's talk about something big in Tennessee. This is produced
Yes.
by the Haslam College of Business,
Yes.
University of Tennessee. Big news when Ford announced the Blue Oval City in West Tennessee. Tell us
Huge
a little
deal.
bit about that. Why did you invest in
What
Tennessee?
a great question. I'm so glad you brought this up because this is such a Ford story. Everyone kind of thinks of our country as one country, but it isn't, as we all know. In West Tennessee, the unemployment is double digits, small farm, plot farms, tough. It's a tough place to make a living. Mm-hmm. And when we thought about building a plant for our new electric vehicles and a battery plant, we looked around the country. We looked at 5 or 10 states that we knew they had an available piece of property. They had, the infrastructure ready to go. We wouldn't have to wait. And in the end, we picked Tennessee because it's business friendly. The development team had done an amazing job finding just the right industrial property for us. The workforce was keen. And we would transform the community. Literally, those people's lives would change forever because of their job at Ford. And it all came together with the governor and the local politicians. We put together a deal. We've been working on the factory. We'll be launching the vehicle in the next couple of years. We're really excited about that and the battery plant. And this is our first facilities in Tennessee.
Cool. You're going to do the EV vehicles and batteries, and let's talk about electrification.
Sure.
Because you have done a lot
Yes.
in that area since
Yes.
you've been CEO.
Yes.
One of the first things you did is you split Ford.
Yes.
How has that changed the company? Because you did an EV vision. You
Yes.
called it what? Ford E?
Model E, yep.
Model E, sorry. Okay. And then you have the regular.
Yep. We have our Pro business and our Blue business, which is our retail vehicles like F-150. And we did that, Monica, because I believe that I was very humbled when we took apart the first Model 3 Tesla and started to take apart the Chinese vehicles. When we took them apart, it was shocking what we found. On the Model E, on the Mach-E, for example, which at the time was #2 best-selling EV in the country, our wiring loom, just the wiring in the vehicle, was 1.6 kilometers longer than the Tesla wiring loom. It was 70 pounds heavier, and just the battery, the cost of the battery to haul around the wiring in the car was $200 a battery. And I know how our system works. A combustion engineer looks at a wiring loom and say, well, they're all kind of the same, so we bid it out to a wiring company. But when an EV has a really expensive battery, the weight of the vehicle is monetized through the size of the battery. So if you can invest more in a lightweight, shorter wiring loom, which costs more, we can save money on the battery. We don't do that system-wise system way of looking at the cost in an internal combustion engine. All the math changes with the EV with that huge, expensive battery.
And you needed a new division.
We did. We not only needed a new division, we needed a new way of governing the company and the business because it's fundamentally different. These cars are also software defined, so software becomes a key part of the customer's experience. This is also a different orientation. And as well, I knew it was going to be brutal, business-wise. And so I wanted my team to not have it stuck inside the company where F-150 sales would offset it and everyone would go, it's okay, required by law, or, but I wanted it to be public. And I guess that's my ethos. My ethos is take on the hardest problems as fast as you can and do it sometimes in public because you'll solve them quicker that way. And I believe Model E was a big decision for the company because it put our EV losses, $5 billion a year, in the public investors' eyes, and they hold us accountable as managers to solve that problem now, to make EVs. Do they hold other companies accountable? Yes, but will they have the visibility? No. Will inside the company you have the visibility? No. If you break it out, everyone knows. It's no secret.
On the other hand, your commercial vehicles and your internal combustion ones
Wow.
are
Yes.
going gangbusters
Especially
right now.
our Pro business. It's amazing. I didn't know, Monica, when this software low CO2 transition would happen with the company, with our industry. I really didn't realize, but now I do, that the business customers would push us into the future way, way earlier than an Explorer F-150 customer.
Because?
Well, they use their vehicle as a tool. Their vehicle literally is a hammer. And so they are totally focused on efficiency, cost of ownership, and efficiency of what that vehicle does. So if they can get software to predict something's going to fail before it fails, they'll buy the software. If the software teaches their driver to be easier on the brakes, to have lower maintenance cost, because the vehicle utilization is higher than a retail customer, like an Explorer, maybe gets used 10% of the day, a commercial vehicle, 70, 80% of the day, then that's cost, that's money. And so we found that the services business on Pro took off. in the business. It's kind of like PCs. It's not a surprise to me that Microsoft, B2B, that wound up being a really good bet by Microsoft to go into the B2B software business for computing versus Apple that came later, B2C. Same thing that we're finding with this new transformation in the auto industry. So of all the businesses, if anyone wants to know what's happening in the auto business, technology-wise, customer adoption of software, electrification, go ask a business customer. They will tell you they're more intense user, and so they are a tougher customer.
And the transit vans run the country in a way,
Yes.
right?
Yeah,
that's big to you.
I think we have 80% market share of electric vans in our country, and I think we have 60% market share in vans. We have about 40 to 50% share of commercial pickup trucks in our country. So when you see an ambulance, when you see a construction site, when you see someone working on a road in your community, you look at those vehicles, it'll be a white Super Duty or a white Transit. We love that business.
I know you've talked about it
Yes.
a lot. It seems like
it.
kind of an unsexy thing, but it's an
Yes.
actual workplace to
Well,
run America.
Boy, are you right. Our communities run on these vehicles. And to tie up to what we talked about before, the essential economy, if you're a plumber, electrician, your name's on the side of that truck. And you're doing a job that a lot of people don't thank you for. But without you, your community doesn't work. You drive an ambulance, you're a first responder, a police, we all take them for granted until we need them. That's Ford. Ford is their partner. We take so much pride that we're the number one vehicle for emergency services, first responders, police, number one in electrician, plumbers, and those vocations. I think it's the ethos of our company. It's like that's what the Model T was. And I remember walking down San Francisco with one of my colleagues, finance colleague, nothing against finance, but I said, they said, isn't it a shame that our market share in downtown San Francisco is so low? And I said, what do you mean? I said, we've been walking here for the last 10 minutes, Jim, and there's hardly any Fords down here. They're all BMWs, Mercedes, blah, blah, blah. I said, I think our market share is about 10%. And he said, what are you talking about? I said, look at all the work vehicles, the transit vans, the Super Duties working on the elevator services. He goes, well, they don't count. I said, they count to us. He goes, but they're kind of invisible, Jim. I said, not to us, not to me. And coming from Toyota, where we were a retail brand, maybe I appreciate our pro business more than others. But I'm sure glad it's showing us the future.
On EVs, which
Yes.
everyone thought was going to be the future.
Yes.
You just said on your last earnings call that you expected to only be 5% of the U.S. market.
Yes.
That's not so good. Is
No,
it? I mean, are you upset that the market seems to be stalling for EVs when at first we thought it was going to be unstoppable?
Well, I know in business we all want a lot of certainty. The reality is when a technology change happens, like this or software-defined vehicles, we always get surprised. I always say to my team, those customers are pretty pesky in a positive way. Like they always are surprising us. So don't tell me what they're going to be like, because they're going to surprise us. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that Americans are really smart. It turns out that Americans don't want a $70,000 or $80,000 electric vehicle just because it's electric. They want a $30,000 electric vehicle because that's the price point and the duty cycle, like the way driving a commuter type vehicle that fits an EV at this moment in its technology. $70,000 vehicles, people drive long distance in the US. You have to plug in. A lot of people just think that's a pain and they don't want to go through it. But if you just drive 100 miles a day, an electric vehicle is cheaper to own than a combustion Ford Maverick. And so let's put it this way. I think everyone in business thinks that when a new technology happens, like AI or EVs, they all think that we're in the 9th inning of the game. No, we're in the 1st inning. You've seen this through your whole career. the second and third innings can look completely different than the first. And the most important skill as a leader in the company is your speed and your flexibility. We now know that the EV market in the US is totally different than we thought. We moved 3-4 years ago with the EV business, with the Lightning, the F-150 electric, and the Mach-E and the E-Transit. We wanted to move fast because we didn't know what would happen. Thank God we moved fast. But then we were surprised by the customers. So about a year ago, we said, let's reshoot our capital over here in a totally different direction. And everyone will learn more about our EV strategy in the US. The same token, 2/3 of our industry on the vehicle side is outside the US.
Which is good for Ford as a global company.
Yes, exactly. We're a global company. So you want Ford to succeed all around the world, not just the US. In those parts of the world, the other 2/3, EVs are exploding. In China, the biggest car market in the world, almost 27,000, so 27 million, so 10 million more than the US. Half of the vehicles are EVs, half. The government is completely bet on that technology. They put their foot on the economic scale for the customer. So if Ford's going to be successful, we can't walk away from EVs, not just for the US, but if we want to be a global company, I'm not going to just cede that to the Chinese. I think Ford learned a lot from the Japanese and the South Koreans, like hard-working young people like me, and I don't think we want to make that mistake a third time.
Let's talk about autonomous
Sure.
driving. That remains one of the most exciting future aspects of mobility. Do you think so? And what do you feel at Ford about that?
I love this topic because everyone visualized an autonomous vehicle, as our company did for a long time, a robotaxi, a robotic taxi. Mm-hmm. You go down to San Francisco or Austin, you see these cars, and it's fascinating for people to see, oh, a car drives itself, because we all grew up kind of taking driving lessons and having a machine do that. I remember talking to my grandfather, and he told me about the first automated device in his life, an elevator. And he said, I asked my grandfather, what would be the worst job you can think of? And he said, a freight elevator operator, where you would, in there, the elevator is doing its job, you're there just pulling the gate, and all you have to do is look at that freight all day. You have no other person to talk to. And he said, automation is a scary thing, Jim. Autonomy is a scary thing. This was a conversation I had with him 50 years ago. I think about that story a lot because at Ford, our ethos with the Model T is democratizing technology. It's not to go in the high end or be the first mover. It's to spread across technology to as many customers as possible. And I think there's an alternative view of an exciting automated future for cars. And that's Ford's view, which is you push a button on the highway and your car drives for you.
Wait, I know we kind of have hands-free cars
Yes.
now. You can
Yes.
do that.
Yes.
But are you saying your goal is to have like eyes not involved in the driving?
Yes, yes. Unless we really need you, we'll drive the car for you. Ford will drive the car for you. Not just hands-free. In fact, hands-free winds up being a gateway to eyes off. But, you know, the average American spends 20 or 30 minutes a day in their car on a highway. Mm-hmm. I never thought I could say this in my life, but what if Ford Motor Company gives most Americans 20 minutes back in their life every day?
Because now in the car we can do other
Whatever
things.
you want. Whatever
Right.
you want. That's going to be interesting, right?
Yeah. Well,
to see what everyone...
when is that going to happen at Ford, and where are you on
Well,
eyes off driving?
So we were investing in robotaxis, and one of the early decisions I made is to say, let's stop that, take all those people and put them on this eyes off the road, level, we call it level 3 autonomy, highway driving, high speed. Now that's a tough problem. You could do it at low speed in traffic because there's a car in front of you. So we can use all the sensors today, but high speed when there's no one in front of you, but then someone's got a parked car in the slow lane, that's a harder problem to solve. But it's a much easier problem to solve than urban self-driving. And there are more miles driven on the highway every day in America than in the cities every day in America. So this is a bigger unlock for customers, and that's Ford.
Where are you in that process?
we're
When will I be able to
we're
get
pretty
one of
far.
those? I need my eyes off. I want some other things to do.
Just over 2 years. Yep.
Is there anybody else close?
I think I think there'll be a few companies close. Elon's been working hard, but he isn't there yet to the level of safety that we hold ourselves accountable for. I think General Motors and us and a few other companies are going to be right around the same zone. If I look at their press reviews or their press clippings, but I would say Ford's been working on this problem longer.
So you want to be first?
I think we want to be the best. I don't want to be the first and be okay. I'd rather be 6 months later and be the best. And what that means is natural. If you do hands-free today, the lane centering is very different between different companies. You can press Blue Cruise at Ford, and that vehicle, that F-150 goes right down the center. You do the same thing as someone else's hands-free system. It's bouncing between lane. Big truck goes by you, or you're going by a big truck. It gets really close. It feels really uncomfortable. So I think the way the system is going to be executed, changing lanes, slowing down, going through interchanges on the highway, I think, as well as the way that UX works with consuming media and streaming and doing video conferencing and all the other things you're going to do.
I want to do that.
All of that together, you want to be the best, not the first.
What about supply chain?
Okay.
That has been...
That's a sexy topic.
Believe it or not, yes,
is.
and it's
It
become
is.
the bane of your existence sometimes,
Yes, it
right?
is, but that's okay.
You know, at Haslam College of Business,
Yeah.
where I am now, that we have the number one major, supply chain is the number one major in the nation for graduates and number two in the nation
Wow.
for undergraduate
Wow.
of
Congratulations.
public universities.
Congratulations.
So that's a big deal to us, and I know we're going to have lots of students that want to come learn from you at Ford.
Yeah. I would say of all the C-suite jobs that people should aspire to, if you want to make a difference in our society, I would pick one: supply chain.
Now, what was your major undergrad, and what would you do
General
today?
business. I would go right into supply chain. Look, you got to think about it. Think about it, especially in a company like Ford. Our thousands of parts are coming from all over the world. A supply chain expert has to know about all the geopolitics. They have to know about technology. They have to know the rare earths and the things that where you have concentrated risk for your supply chain. And it's no surprise to me that Tim Cook and many of the CEOs in great companies today come from a supply chain background. No surprise at all to me, because the leadership required to be world-class at supply chain is the same capability you need to run a company.
And so supply chain is big to how you run this company. It's integral
Unbelievable.
to your company.
Yes.
Is it also important to our country?
Essential. I mean, when I talk about the essential economy, this is adjacent to that. I don't think most Americans have any idea how scary our dependency is on certain countries if we were to get in a war. Let's just take that extreme situation. I saw your interview with Jamie. That's something Jamie always brings up, is war, because it's a reality of our modern life. Well, we don't have any battery raw materials processed in our country. We can mine lithium, we can mine, nickel, we can mine cobalt, but all the processing goes back to China, all of it. And so it's incredibly risky. I mean, our whole society runs on batteries now. The whole grid is backed up by batteries. People don't realize that, but they will if something goes wrong. And to get the raw materials that go in batteries, you got to go to China. That's just the beginning. Semiconductors. Well, we're getting serious about onshoring semiconductors, but they run our whole society. Mature nodes, so older semiconductors, transistors or diodes that run our wiper system, or your door regulator for your window, or your vacuum cleaner, your coffee maker, or anything in your life, that all comes from overseas. And we found out in the chip crisis how dangerous even a week of interruption can be to our industrial companies. And magnets, rare earths. We realized magnets go into a car. We have magnets in every motor: your wiper motor, your door motor, your window motor.
Your car,
yeah. Sorry.
That's okay.
Everything. There are hundreds of magnets in that car. And if we want high power magnets that don't take up a lot of space, pretty old technology, we have to get 100% of that rare earth from China today. Those are all basic things. How are we going to deal with that as a country? Do I work with the DOD and the government and academia to solve that problem, like the essential economy? What are we going to do to change things? Now, Ford, thankfully, is a company that isn't going to just sit on the sideline. We're going to make change. We're big buyers of all those content. We hire lots of factory workers. We're going to do our part. But even Ford can't do the whole job here. So supply chain is really the essence of our modern society today. And all the devices we depend on, all the products we love, someone in supply chain made that happen. I can't think of a more exciting part of business functionally to go in. When I was growing up, it was finance. It was, the revenue side, marketing. Yeah, no, supply chain. Remember The Graduate? Plastics are the future. I would just say supply chain is the future.
That's funny. We like that at Haslam College of Business. You have been reinventing Ford almost since you've been here.
Yes.
What do you want the Jim Farley era to symbolize? I know it's still going.
Yeah.
We're not looking back, but what's important to you for the Jim Farley era?
I want to restore the company's dignity globally. I want Ford to be the most respected industrial company in the country. And the most important mission statement for us is those people in Tennessee, that we give them the life that my grandfather had, that Ford gave my whole family.
That's poignant about your family. Let's bring up another family member. I can't let you go without talking about your cousin, Chris Farley.
Oh, Christopher. Mm-hmm.
Yes, Christopher, you called
Yes.
him. Okay, so he's the late actor and comedian.
Yes.
Who brought so much fun
Yes, he did.
to watch.
Yes.
And you had a strong relationship with him.
Yeah, I wound up being on the West Coast, and as Chris got more famous, he wound up being, we grew up together. We were a large Catholic family. We had a lot of family reunions, and they didn't always end well, but, we like most families, we did a lot together, and our family, we moved around a lot, but our families, my mom was from Michigan, my dad was from Wisconsin, and so we'd get together in the summer, somewhere in the Midwest, and, I adored his family, his mom and dad. They were a big part of my growing up and my ethos as a person. And, Chris was always a bit of a puzzle. He was younger to me, and, I kind of was always working, a bit boring guy, but he always had a great story. And but when Chris became really successful in Saturday Night Live, he would come to the West Coast, and we would spend a lot of time together. I remember going to Jay Leno's first appearance on Jay Leno. He said, "Yeah, Jim, could you come with me?" And a couple movie openings with his family. And there were times when, I had to look after him a little bit.
Because he struggled with the addiction.
Of course, yes. Many people in my family have, and, so
Same
many
in
families. And, who hasn't been touched with that? So, Christopher... I think there's so much to say. I think people are always kind of surprised that, we're related, because even though you can see facial features that are similar, I'm not funny at all. And
You might have a little bit
maybe,
of humor
but,
there. Come on.
we all kind of grew up in the same Irish family, so we're a little cheeky, and we always like to get away with something. And I was really happy for Chris when he became successful, but for a lot of people, another reminder for me, success can be a burden as well, and you have to handle it the right way, and you have to remain true north. And I think that was something that Chris tried to do, to be that everyman with his comedy. But when the lights came down, there were lots of distractions for him, as we all can imagine. And I think, I don't know this for sure, but sometimes comedy can come from complex people. John Candy, I mean, there were really funny people, but the humor comes from a place. And
A dark place,
yes,
potentially.
and Chris was so talented, I mean, in our family, I just had so many experiences where I laughed so hard.
I'm sure.
Harder than you can even imagine.
Now, you recently opened an addiction center or something, and I know that's one of your favorite.
Francis Center. Yes, my number one charity. My grandfather and my uncle actually brought me to downtown Detroit when I came here on holiday and Christmas. We work in an old soup kitchen. Remember when they were called soup kitchens? Mm-hmm. And there were homeless people. This is in the 70s, and we're Catholic, so that's part of the holidays is you go and work in a soup kitchen. Well, who would have ever imagined that I come back to Ford, and on the weekend I wound up going to the same soup kitchen that I went to when I was 16 as a visitor with my grandfather, who he and my uncle would go there all the time, and not just when on vacation, but all the time. So I fell in love with this place, Pope Francis Center, run by Jesuit. I went to Georgetown as a Jesuit. I love the Jesuits. They're very curious, and it was interesting because the food is like a Band-Aid. Yes, people need food, but really the way Pope Francis Center thought about the homeless problem is we got to address the whole person: addiction, legal advice, everything, cleanliness, medical issues, mental illness, and our society can't deal with that. So, and if you're homeless in Detroit, you choose to live on the street. And the aha moment for me was I met a person that they were put inside and they slept outside because they chose to live on the streets. They didn't want to be inside. I say that because I believe we've created here the first transition center to really solve homelessness, which is you take someone for 6 months or a year and you deal with all those root causes. They're a long way down range on their life. Those problems have been there for a long time. You got to unpack each of them, and they're all intertwined. And then we give people, you can sleep on the heated sidewalks, but you won't get beat up because it's on our property. Or you can stay inside, but you're going to get every resource you can imagine, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of resources. And then we'll see how it goes. And if you do your part in 6 months and we'll do our part, maybe we can solve each of these people's issues. And in that transition center is the Chris Farley room, where everyone who goes through addiction can look up and think about his struggles, just like their struggles.
We've talked a lot about all the things that could keep you up at night. What gets you up in the morning?
Working at Ford, my family, my life. I lost a friend, like most of us my age. I lost a friend, and he died slowly, and I remember asking him, what will you miss? It's interesting when you talk to someone who's alive that knows they're not going to make it. Mm-hmm. Late in his life, I asked him that question. He looked at me and goes, Jim, I'm going to miss the simplest things you can't imagine. I'll just miss my life. That's what I get up. So blessed to lead Ford, to be here with you, to talk about Ford's journey, to be a father, a husband, That's what gets me up in the morning. I can't imagine doing anything else.
I can't imagine you doing anything else. This show is called Office Hours,
Yes.
Business Edition. So I have to ask you, if you could have office hours with anyone, be in a closed room talking to anyone, who would that be?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Boy, you got me on that one. That's a good one. With my current life, it'd probably be Jamie Dimon.
Y'all already know each other.
I
though.
know, but I haven't had office hours with him. I talk to him as much as I can.
I
but-
had office hours with
Yeah,
him. a while
but you
back.
did. The reason why I say that is Jamie's been through so much. He's led in so many different circumstances, and he's had so many different challenges in his life, and he just sails through it. And I think I would learn a lot from him. But of all the people, I'd like to have my grandfather back.
Wouldn't you?
Yeah.
I mean, it's where it all began with you
Yeah.
and Ford.
Yeah, I have his ID, his employee ID, his factory ID. It's a very Ford story. When I joined the company, I said my grandfather worked here, and they said, well, tell me more about him. I gave name and all that stuff, and they said, your your grandfather's the 389th employee we've ever hired. He's
And now you have 180,000
Yes. No, but he was employee 389.
from the beginning.
From the beginning. We've had millions and millions. And they said he's one of the earliest employees we have records on. And, he had nothing. And this picture of him when he was probably 15, I'd never seen him that young. He was always an old man. And that's on my desk.
Today.
Oh, yeah. And the simple reason is because he went through the Depression, and he whistled through life. He whistled his whole time. Like, I never saw him upset, never saw him mad a few times, but less than most. And I wish he could see what we've become as a company.
And what you've become as his grandson.
Well, for me, he'd probably just say, get back to work.
Well, I'm going to let you get back to work.
Thank you, Monica.
So thank you so much for
Thank
joining
you.
me.
Thank you so much. It's such a treat. I'm so proud of everything you're doing now for our country. I'm so excited to hear about the supply chain. The business school's really got something there, I think. And I appreciate the time together.
Thank you.
Thank you.